Hi everybody. This is Maureen, or I'm Maureen. Welcome to this free webinar that I'm doing on contracts tonight, where we're going to walk through a couple of contracts MBEs. We're going to walk through those, and we are going to do walk through our contracts essay. I was thinking today that maybe we'll start with the essay first, since I usually start with a multiple choice. Do you guys have a preference? Do you not care? Do you like starting with a multiple choice? You can tell me in the chat. But I just figured we'd start with the essay to do something different, and I want to be able to walk through the whole thing. Yeah, let's do that. Everybody's saying essay in the chat too, so I love that. Somebody said my choice. Thank you. I do appreciate that flexibility. Give me 1 second. I am pulling up the essay. Okay, so I'm going to put the link in the chat, and for those of you that are watching this later, if you get the recording sent to you that like we do also include, well, we put it in there. It's from the NCBE, the July 2018 essay, the July 2018 essay from the NCBE website. So it's the July 2018 contracts essay. So you just go to the NCBE website and look for the free essays that are released, and it's posted there. And it's the contracts question in the packet, which is labeled as page 4 in the document. And I put the link for those of you that are here live. I put the link in the chat. And for those of you watching it on YouTube, we'll put it in the video description so you can go there. But let's have a look. Let me pull it out of my tab that has about 35 things on it. Actually, I'm going to pull it up and mark it up handwritten, just like I would on the actual bar exam, so we can see that. So give me just 1 second to do it that way. And yeah, I'll share screen right now. But I'm Maureen. I'm the founder and owner of Bar MD. We are a full service bar prep company. So anything you need, for just about any jurisdiction, essays, PTs, MBEs, and I'm really excited for all of our upcoming live classes that we're going to be doing. So we have upcoming that I have not done before. We have a new Mastering the MBE course. So for those of you that need to work on your multiple choice, it's 25 live classes, and we're going to go through all of the MBEs and the tips and tricks and everything that trips people up, just like you'll see this evening. We're going to walk through that I break it into small assignments. There's also going to be, and I'm going to grab my Apple Pencil real quick. I'll be right back. Sorry. But we will also be holding you accountable, having you come to class every week, prepared, doing assignments, making sure that you're doing the homework. It's not graded by me, but we will check and make sure that you are doing it to keep you accountable, which is a tough thing for a lot of people to kind of keep themselves going, because it takes so much self-motivation. So we're going to do that through 25 multiple choice classes, 12 essay classes, and 6 PT boot camp classes. So the essay, we call all of it sort of a boot camp. So an essay boot camp, each one, I'm just going through basically one subject, and I'm going to write an essay start to finish, along with the PTs. I literally write it in front of you. The first class, we take a little bit longer. So we'll take like 2 hours on the first PT class, but I actually do write these things in front of you in time. All right. So we always start when we're doing an essay, we're going to dig into the essay now. So we always start by looking at the call to question to identify what subject we're in, and ideally to identify what topic within the subject we're in. So here it says, was a homeowner bound by his promise to keep his offer open for a week? Explain. And assuming that the homeowner was not bound by his promise to keep the offer open, did the neighbor's statement, I accept your offer, create a contract with the homeowner for the sale of the lawnmower? So contracts. We know we're in contracts. I wouldn't necessarily write that down on the bar, but I would make my little short issue checklist of things that I want to think about. So I'm not going to go through this whole thing with you in class. It's here. I do it in the full class, where it's just a checklist for the subject. So here we have A, which stands for applicable law, F, which is formation, T, which is what are the terms of the contract, B for breach, R for remedies, E for excuse for non-performance, and T for third-party issue. I almost said B. T for third-party issues. Those are all of the possible things that could be in this essay. And based on the call to question, I probably want to address applicable law and it sounds like formation issues. So it sounds like those two things is what I'm thinking about based on this. Is he bound to keep his promise open for a week? That's usually getting at like a firm offer or an option contract. So I'm thinking that stuff. You always want to think about the applicable law. Is it UCC or common law? And then assuming that he's not bound, did the neighbor's statement, I accept your offer, create a contract? So was there a valid acceptance? So was the offer still open? All of those formation issues. And we see a lot of similar issues in the MBEs and in the essays, but I like this essay in particular because it's actually covering some stuff that we're not going to see in the MBEs that we're going to talk about this evening. So here it says, a homeowner who knew that his neighbor wanted to buy a lawnmower called the neighbor and offered to sell his lawnmower. So here I'm like, okay, it's UCC for $350. And it's a homeowner and a neighbor. So I'm thinking, okay, well, because of the call to question being about holding an offer open, I'm thinking firm offers, or are they merchants? And it's a homeowner and a neighbor, so it doesn't sound like it, but we'll just reserve judgment for now because maybe they'll trick us later. They don't, but maybe they will. You don't know yet, theoretically. So called the neighbor, offered to sell his lawnmower to her for $350. The neighbor replied, no way, that price is too high. The homeowner responded, the price is a good one. See if you can find another lawnmower as good as mine for as little as $350. I'm confident that you'll come to your senses. In fact, I'm so confident that not only am I willing to sell you the lawnmower for $350, but I promise to keep this offer open for a week so that you have time to do some comparison shopping. If you don't get back to me within a week, I'll sell the lawnmower to someone who knows what a good value it is. Okay, so here there is an offer, right? So this is UCC, but does it sound like they're merchants? No, there's nothing suggesting that they're in the business of buying and selling goods of the kind. This is just a neighbor, and this is just two neighbors having a chat. I don't know why they want to sell the lawnmower and it's such a good deal, blah, 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 but they do. So offer, and I'm going to just make a note, not a firm offer, no option because no consideration. 4 days later, so within the time period, 4 days later, the neighbor concluded that $350 was indeed a very good price for the homeowner's lawnmower. Accordingly, she decided that she would go see the homeowner the next morning and accept the offer to buy the lawnmower from him for $350. That evening, the neighbor got a telephone call from an acquaintance who lived on the same block as the homeowner and the neighbor. The acquaintance said, congratulate me, I just got a great deal. Who says that? I just got a great deal on a used lawnmower. The homeowner agreed to sell me his lawnmower for $375. At that price, it's a steal. I'm picking it up tomorrow afternoon. So what is this? This is an indirect revocation, and some people are saying it in the chat, from a reliable source. So there is an offer. So first of all, it's UCC. There is an offer, not firm. It is revocable. And then there is a revocation, right? Revocation is effective, upon receipt. But is it a valid revocation? And one thing that you have to watch out for, in particular in MBE problems, we see this a lot, but something you have to watch out for is the revocation and is the acceptance valid? So I always say, okay, revocation, question mark, is it a valid revocation? This is indirect, which is totally okay. All right, let's keep going. The neighbor replied, this must be a mistake. He offered to sell that lawnmower to me. The acquaintance said, there's no mistake. We wrote up the deal and everything. I'll come by your place right now and show you the signed contract. A few minutes later, the acquaintance went to the neighbor's house and showed her a signed document pursuant to which the homeowner had agreed to sell his used lawnmower to the acquaintance for $375. The neighbor went to the homeowner's house the first thing the next morning, rang his doorbell, and as soon as the homeowner came to the door, said, I accept your offer. The homeowner replied, too late. I've agreed to sell the mower to someone else for $375. Next time, act quickly when you're presented with such a great bargain. So this is not a valid acceptance, because it was already revoked. The neighbor is furious about the homeowner's refusal to sell her the lawnmower for $350. In her view, the homeowner was bound to keep his offer open for a week, and in any event, her statement, I accept your offer, created a contract that bound the homeowner to the deal. So again, was the homeowner bound by his promise to keep his offer open for a week? Explain. And two, assuming the homeowner was not bound by his promise to keep the offer open, did the neighbor's statement, I accept your offer, create a contract with the homeowner for the sale of the lawnmower? So let's write this answer. I'm gonna do my setup here. So I'm gonna look at the call to question and break it, and let's break this down a bit. So one, Was the homeowner, and you can do this as the issue is whether the homeowner is bound by his promise to keep his offer open for a week. Not an eek. Okay. And two, assuming the homeowner was not bound, and I'm not going to write the whole thing. Did the neighbor, I'm just going to say, I'm going to paraphrase it, validly accept. Okay. So put that. And then let's put our issues in. So I put my headings in, or my questions in, just to break things up, which you don't totally have to do. If you're someone that runs out of time, we can talk, and I'll talk in the class about how to just sort of shorten that a bit. But let's just, assume that we've got the time here. Okay, so then first, I always want to talk about applicable law. So applicable law, and then here, firm offer, option, contract. I'm just going to combine them, and I'm going to do both. That's totally okay. Because we do want to address both. All right. And then assuming the homeowner was not bound, what did the neighbor validly accept? So I'm just going to put here formation. So contract formation. So there is an offer, but I might just put here revocation and then acceptance, because those are the two things that I want to talk about. We don't have to stick to that. You don't even have to have those as headings at all, but those are the issues that I want to think about. Now I want to place the facts from my fact pattern in here. And because the reason that we do that, if you follow the process this way, the reason that we do that is because you're basically writing half your analysis. So applicable law, this is for the sale of a lawnmower, and homeowner and neighbor. Homeowner is not a merchant. Nothing suggests he is in the business of selling lawnmowers. Everybody with me so far? Okay, cool. Good, good. Thank you. All right. And then the second part here, he's not again, it's really kind of the same as above. You could do it above. Sometimes I like to address often merchants, or at least be thinking about it when I'm thinking about applicable law, because sometimes it can help you catch an issue. Sometimes it can help you catch that. So firm offer, option contract. So homeowner is not a merchant, and no consideration paid to keep offer open. Okay, now let's go down. And I'm just putting in, right now, I'm just putting in the bare minimum. In a perfect world, we're going to use more of the facts, but right now I just want to keep it minimal, because we want to make sure, because so for those of you that are California, I know there's quite a few of you California people here, and then those of you that are UBE. For this essay is a 30-minute essay. It's an MEE. So you go a bit more to the point. You go a bit more to the point than you would do on a California essay. California, we beef things up a little bit more. And in California, we use every fact. In the UBE, we want to use as many facts as possible. People often ask me, how do I go from, depends on how your jurisdiction works in the scoring, but basically from just below passing to solidly passing. And it's the use of the facts is what it is. So let's talk about, let's use some of these facts here a little bit. So do you need to define what a merchant? You can quickly, yeah, you absolutely can. I'm just going to move this a little bit. Okay, so the revocation. So let's see, neighbor, so acquaintance called neighbor and told her that neighbor bought homeowner's lawnmower. Okay, that's kind of a lot of what you need. Okay, so there was an offer. So you could say, was there an offer? We do sort of talk about it above, but you could mention here again, if you hadn't already. So homeowner had offered to sell neighbor the lawnmower. Okay, so we can just say that he'd offered to sell neighbor the lawnmower. But then we're going to get into the fact that it was revoked. Okay, that it was indirect, so they got it from the neighbor. Yeah. Okay. And then the acceptance. We'll talk about the acceptance. So neighbor, yeah, acquaintance, yeah, yeah. Well, we can say that too. Somebody said, Laura said that the acquaintance actually bought the lawnmower. I mean, you could just say offered to show neighbor and the contract. Okay, I don't think it says that they actually showed them. Oh no, showed her the signed contract. Yeah, a showed and the contract, the signed contract. Okay, acceptance. Neighbor went to H's house the next morning and said, "I accept," as soon as homeowner as H came to the door. And to me, there's a tiny bit of a counter argument here because they said I accept before the homeowner communicated the revocation, but that doesn't work because there was already an effective revocation. But I'm going to say, okay, we could have a counter argument here. It's ideal to find at least one counter argument per essay. So I'm just going to say N said I accept before H communicated, before H directly communicated. Oh, I communicated a revocation. Okay, we're going to talk about this. So does this make sense so far to everybody? Did you guys all, if you looked at this essay in advance of class, did you catch these issues? Is there anything that you missed? Did you guys get a counter argument? Tell me if you flagged the counter argument. Tell me if you didn't flag the counter argument and see that potential here. So that's one thing that can keep you, that's one thing that can keep you from getting a higher score is not including counter arguments, looking for them. I'm always looking for them, and you start to really see them quite a bit. So then after this, we go and we do our rules and we turn the facts here into analysis. So facts into analysis all the way through. So I'm gonna now, and you notice I haven't written my rules yet. A lot of people want to write their rules right away and get them all in, and then they run out of time on writing the actual analysis. The analysis matters the most. So like if this is you and then you get halfway down and you're like, oh my God, I'm running out of time, you can quickly take your facts and turn them into analysis and omit the rule, and you're gonna get a better score than having all the rules in. You're going to do better and you can absolutely pass. Whereas if you don't have time to write the analysis, you won't get a passing essay. So yeah, these are just the facts. Okay, so contracts for the sale of goods are governed by the UCC. All other contracts are governed by common law. Merchants are those who deal in goods of the kind. That's it. Really simple rules. So I want to say here, this is for the sale of a good because this is for the sale of a lawnmower. Additionally, homeowner is not a merchant because Nothing's Jesse's in the business of selling lawnmowers. Thus, the UCC applies. That's it. That's how we make do a quick little analysis. Okay, firm offer option contract. This is definitely where the points are. Under the UCC, a promise by the offeror to keep an offer open is enforceable absent consideration if the promisor, or the offeror rather, is a merchant. Sorry, I have to sneeze. Okay. If the parties are not merchants, or if the offeror is not a merchant, the offer may be irrevocable for the time stated if consideration is paid to create an option contract. So I'm going to go through both of these. So here, there is not a merchant's firm offer because homeowner is not a merchant. And I'm going to say as explained above. Additionally, obviously this means like I obviously know the rules here. So that's a big part of this. So additionally, there is not an option contract because, and notice I have the word because in every sentence of analysis, because no consideration was paid to keep the offer open. All right, so easy peasy, right? And then I want to make sure I have a conclusion. Thus, and I want to answer the call of the question. There is not a firm offer or option contract. And then I'll do accordingly. This is like how I do my sum up of my conclusion or to answer the issue. The homeowner is not bound by his promise to keep his offer open for a week. Boom. Okay, so contract formation, right? So I'm going to just give my rule. Somebody said our firm offer is required to be in writing and this offer is verbal. This offer is verbal, but statute of frauds run through it, right? It's not an offer. It's not a contract for the sale of goods over $500. It doesn't have to be in writing. A firm offer doesn't have to be in writing. No. So to form a contract, there must be an offer, acceptance, and consideration. Okay. So we can say an offeror may revoke an offer at any time prior to acceptance, so long as the offer is revocable. We can just add that just because revocability was part of the issue up above. And we can add the rules about indirect revocation. Don't totally have to, but we can. So we can say an offeror may revoke an offer through words or conduct demonstrating an intent not to enter the proposed contract. An offeror revokes through conduct when the revocation is communicated to the offeree directly or indirectly prior to acceptance. As explained above, well, we didn't really explain it. There was and I'm not really going to go into offer because I'm just going to say it because of homeowners, because homeowner had offered to sell neighbor the lawnmower. You could say for $350. I don't need to go into all the detail of like it was for, to an identified offeree and with clear and definite terms and all of that stuff. That's not really at issue here. Could you talk about it? Yes. And there are facts to it, sure, but it's not at issue here. So we don't need to go into it. So it was an offer to get someone offered to sell the neighbor the lawnmower, and we could say for $350. It's pretty self-explanatory. If there was any ambiguity about whether there was an offer, then I would go more into that, but there's not. So we're just going to leave it at that. There was a revocation, albeit indirect, because acquaintance called neighbor and told her that neighbor bought homeowner's lawnmower. And I want to tie in this language that neighbor bought homeowner's lawnmower, which demonstrates, and I'm going to tie this back to my rule. And I teach all of this stuff. How do you tie stuff back to the rule? How do you draft counter arguments? How do you save time and be strategic about it and not run out of time? All of this stuff I cover in my Mastering the Essays course. There are some lectures that are on demand that you watch prior to class, and then starting mid-November, we are going to have live classes once a week with me that I'm going to teach, where I'm going to walk you through several essays in that subject, or at least two. For UBE, there's sometimes I might do a third. California, we always do too. All right, so now I'm back here in this. So acquaintance called neighbor and told her that neighbor bought homeowner's lawnmower, which demonstrates home, we can just say H's intent not to enter the proposed contract because he could no longer sell the lawnmower in question to neighbor, to N, once he sold it to A. Okay. Additionally, the revocation was communicated to N because A told N about the sale and A actually bought the lawnmower and showed N the signed contract. Fine. So thus there was a valid revocation. I'm going to conclude there, but I'm not going to conclude as to the whole thing until I finish my counter argument. So let's just add this. And this is not totally needed, but I'm going to do it. You don't need to break it out into its own section. Let's see, an acceptance is valid if the offer is still open. Let me just say that. Something like that. That's really all we need. Here, actually, I'm not going to do this in its own section. And we can change our minds when we're doing this. But I want to use these facts. Whenever I do my counter argument, which I'm doing now, I always do it after the analysis that I've done, and then I go into my counter argument, and then I do a conclusion. So, although, and this is the bad fact that we want to deal with, neighbor went to H's house the next morning and said, I accept, as soon as H came to the door, which means N said, I accept before H directly communicated a revocation, which suggests N did validly accept the offer. This argument, i.e., that they did validly accept, is unpersuasive because even though the revocation did not come from H, it was still validly revoked via H's conduct through A, as explained above. Thus, there was a valid revocation, and I'm going to answer the call of the question. The neighbor did not validly accept. N did not validly accept. Make sense? And that's it. I know this is kind of on the easier end. It was just kind of a nice one, but that's how you do it. And this is a strong passing answer. This is, I would say it's definitely passing. And then with the counter argument, it's getting up there. Now, how do we beef it up? You don't need to mention statute of frauds. No, because this is, Sam, you're thinking California. California, you might, but you don't need to mention it because it doesn't apply. It's not at issue. So we don't want to just throw stuff in there that doesn't apply because it doesn't apply in this case. So this is how you get one, you obviously do need to know the law, but I think people generally do on these issues. And you should be practicing your memorization from day one. From day one, work on your memorization. I was talking to someone who's here earlier today, and they know who they are, about incorporating, for them, 20 to 30 minutes a day on 3 different subjects. So 60 to 90 minutes a day just on memorization. And it's active memorization. So practice, like quizzing yourself, writing out the headings and the buzzwords. So which is kind of like writing out your attack outlines, which I also have you do in the course. All right, you guys ready to switch over to these MBEs? Well, Sam, it's a little bit different. In California, you go a little bit beyond this. You go a little bit broader. Yeah, so I tell you, I give you like all of my subject issue checklists for everything in my full course. I don't give them here. I don't give them here, but it's here, and I go a lot more detail in the class. But it's applicable law, the AFT, the applicable law, formation, terms, breach, remedies, excuse for non-performance, and third parties. But I'm not going to go over the full thing here. Let's get on to these MBE questions. Let me switch my screen share over. All right, let's dig into these. Let's get into this one now. So we always start with the call to question. Is a sporting goods shop legally entitled to reject the posters? So they're posters. So what does that mean? It's UCC. You always, always, always want to mark down, is it UCC or common law? So we always want to think about that. So I'm in UCC land. Write that down when you're doing the problems. A sporting goods shop contract with a publisher to buy for sale in its store. Okay, so we have a merchant. Don't know if it matters, but looks like they're both merchants. For sale in its store, 1,200 posters featuring a professional golfer. During production, the image of the golfer was inadvertently reversed, and the right-handed golfer appeared to be left-handed. Okay, so are they entitled to reject? Right. So I'm thinking, okay, well, how can you reject when it's goods? And you're subject to the perfect tender rule, right? So perfect tender, and if the image is reversed, it's then it's not perfect tender. So it's reversed. When the posters were delivered on the date provided in the contract, the sporting goods shop noticed a discrepancy which had no provable significant impact on the effectiveness of the poster. Does that matter? A lot of people like this is your big distractor fact. That's your big distractor. And it doesn't matter because this is UCC perfect tender. And a big thing that happens in all the MBE problems is something will make sense. Like, okay, well, it didn't matter. So why should you be able to reject? But you have to apply the law mechanically. This one is pretty straightforward. Other times it's a lot harder. It's like maybe like you kind of feel bad for the people. If they're designed to do that so that they can try to trip you up. In the opinion of the shop management, however, the posters did not look as good as they had in the catalog from which the shop had ordered them. Is this sporting goods shop legally entitled to reject the posters? So what should the answer be? So are they entitled? They should be entitled to. So this already right off the bat with A, no, they shouldn't be because it says the nonconformity does not materially alter the value. So what they're doing here is they're giving you the common law rule. So it doesn't materially alter. That's kind of getting at or it's like substantial compliance, substantial performance. So common law, or it's getting at installment contract. And this isn't an installment contract. An installment contract is where someone's going to deliver things in like 3 batches. We're going to deliver 50 sinks or 50 posters on month one, 50 posters on month two, 50 posters on month three. So it's good to like dig in and say, okay, when does this material alteration matter? When do we use that language? And it's a good chance to review that while you're in this question. Okay, B. No, because the publisher must be given an opportunity to cure the nonconformity before the sporting goods shop can reject the poster. Do they? So A, it's the wrong result, right? So I'm going to cross that. It's the wrong result because it should be a yes. This is where a lot of people get tripped up. They say they should be given an opportunity to cure the nonconformity. Well, when do we give time to cure the nonconformity? When there is still time left to perform. Had they delivered early, right? But in this fact pattern, it says the posters were delivered on the date provided in the contract. So there is no time left to cure. So it's before performance is due. Good. So yes, because the posters do not conform to the contract. That looks all right, right? Because it's perfect tender. And then D, yes, because the publisher has breached an implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose. This actually contradicts the facts. Showing the it's like it goes beyond the facts a little bit. I don't think you can actually say that it is breached an implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose because it says in the facts also there's no provable significant impact on the effectiveness. So a poster is there to sell you something, to help you sell a good, right? Like you've got a pro golfer with that. So here, one, it doesn't necessarily breach an implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose. Number one, because it's to sell and it's going to. But just because it's different doesn't mean it's breached that warranty. So it goes beyond the facts. So C is our correct answer here. Did everybody get that? Now I'm going to say after the fact, if you guys did this, did you what did everybody pick? I should do my poll because it's then anonymous. Let's see. I just want to get the answers here. So everybody put your answer in the poll. I'm just curious. And did you learn something from that review? We've got answers and everything. So do you see like this is the thing with this class is like I'm taking I go deeper than most people because I'm going to show you what else, when can you expect to see that thing? So that if you miss it, if you missed it, we can make sure you don't miss it again in the future. What fact did you not understand the significance of? You should also be, and I'm going to talk about this in the class, but you should also be printing out the questions. You should have a hard copy of the book when you're in the course, printing out the questions. You should be making large flashcards of the rules as you go through. And then what I suggest is that people get like a red pen, or I have these editor pencils that are like a red and blue. But you can then mark up the question and see what are the things that you didn't know, and then add that in. So do the questions in black or blue ink, and then take your red when you come to class and then identify, okay, these are the things that I pointed out to you, so that you can then understand the significance. The seller's right to cure, just to reiterate, is a seller has the right to cure when there is still time left on the contract to perform. So there's still time left on the contract. So you have to have time to cure. There's a little bit of nuance there with installment contracts as well that I don't want to totally get into today, but okay, so we got answers all over the place. Let me share the results. A lot of people pick C. That's the correct answer, but we had a mix of everything else too. Totally understandable. Totally understandable. All right, let's, and I'm going to have you, it doesn't matter if it's a tailor-made contract. Okay, everybody, for question 2, what did you pick? This is, or question 11, technically. Everybody take a minute and input your answer, if you don't mind. Somebody asked me for the first question that we looked at with the posters, isn't it a tailor-made contract? Yeah, I mean, most contracts are to some extent, but it doesn't matter. There's still no implied warranty of fitness for a particular purpose on this one, which is what I think you're getting at, the person that asked that. Everybody, if you can input your answer, let me know what you picked. All right. So let's start walking through this. So what is the legal status of the transaction? So this one's, pretty big and broad. So I don't know totally what it's getting at yet, but obviously we're in contracts because we're doing contracts today. A daughter was appointed guardian of her elderly father following an adjudication of his mental incompetence. So he lacks capacity. What does it mean if you lack capacity? What does it mean if you lack capacity? It means that the contracts you enter into are void. It means that they are void. The father had experienced periods of dementia during which he did not fully understand what he was doing. The father later contracted to purchase an automobile at a fair price. Anybody enticed by that fair price? From a seller who was unaware of the guardianship. How many of you feel bad for the seller in this case? Tell me in the chat. How many of you feel bad for the seller when you're doing this? It sucks, right? Like, it sucks for this guy. Granted, the seller's going to get the car back, right? They're going to get it back. This contract is void. So, and then this also gets at, do you know that if it's void or voidable for capacity? Because like infancy is voidable. Yeah. So you have to know that different. So at the time of the purchase, the father was lucid and fully understood the nature and purpose of the transaction. They're really trying to walk you to say that this is a valid contract, right? They are absolutely trying to walk you through that. Somebody said it can be considered a necessity in case the car is needed for commuting. I love that somebody mentioned that. That's true. It could be considered a necessity, but it doesn't matter in this case. That's for infants, first of all, or non-adults. And there's nothing in here that suggests that the car is a necessity. Maybe he's buying his 5th car. We don't know that, but don't add facts to the fact pattern. You can't add facts to the fact pattern. Okay, so what's the legal status of the transaction? It's void, which is so tough to grapple with. I hate it. I hate this question because I'm like, ugh, it's just awful. So the contract is enforceable because a reasonable person in the situation of the seller would have thought that the father had the capacity to make the contract. Fair. Like, so this is something that comes up a lot. It's really logical and enticing if you're pulled in, if you're like, yep, logically that would make sense. But we're not necessarily saying what is logical and what makes the most sense on the bar. We're saying, what does the law say you have to do? And the answer here is that it's not enforceable. So this is, yeah, it's super tempting here. So it misstates the test. It's not whether the reasonable person in the situation with the seller would have thought that he had the capacity to make the contract. That's not the test at all. He was incapacitated, so it's void. B, the contract is enforceable because it was made on fair terms and the seller had no knowledge of the father's guardianship. Again, so the people who picked A or B, how could you pick between those two is my question. And often when there's two that would both sort of work or two that would work, then it can't be either. But yeah, B is really tempting. It gets at the fair terms and also the lack of knowledge of the father's guardianship. Um, so it's really logical and enticing if you're getting pulled in by like the emotion of this very unfair situation. Um, but it's incorrect because it misstates the test. So, sorry, I should have been writing this on here. Misstates test. It's void because incapacity. And then I write here SAA is same as above because it really is exactly the same. C, the contract is void because the father was under the guardianship at the time it was made. That's correct. He can no longer enter into contracts. States the right issue, gets the right result, even if it seems a little bit unfair and illogical in this scenario. And it does. I agree. And D, the contract is voidable at the option of the father. So this is really testing that difference between void and voidable. You have to really know this and know, like you might make a list. You might make a flashcard with okay, void contracts, voidable contracts. If you're looking at defenses to formation or defenses to performance or whatever it is, say what is void and what is voidable, and note those differences and memorize that. So it's void. All right, one more. So does everybody understand why the incorrect answer that they picked, why every incorrect answer is incorrect and why the correct is correct? Does everybody understand that? I want to make sure. Okay, good. And when I'm teaching and when I have class, I will be allowing, like, there will be time for questions too. I'm going to try to keep it when I'm going through, I'm going to try to keep it. And then for each question, there'll be a chance to ask questions too. Oh, and let's see, let me end the poll and share the results. A bit more mixed on this one, even than the last one. A lot of people enticed by A and B. A third of the people that responded, and quite a few to C as well. Okay. Now I want everybody to do the third question, which is question 18 in the packet. Put in your answer. And thanks for reminding me about the poll, Jack. All right, everybody put in your answers for the third question. All right, let's get your answers in. So I'm going to start walking through it. So if the builder sued the company for $1 million, is the builder likely to prevail? Okay, often when we see builders, we see a lot of construction contracts. Oh, we see a lot of construction contracts just in general in the contracts problems. So keep that in mind. There's so many tiny little special rules that apply to construction contracts. Most of them are not tested on the MBE though, thank God. All right, I'm going to walk through the fact pattern. So a company contracted with a builder to construct a new corporate. Okay, so this is construction, so it's common law. And I should have marked that on the last question. This is this is UCC because it's an automobile and yeah, doesn't get a statute of fraud. So, okay. So a company contracted with a builder to construct a new corporate headquarters for a fixed price of 100 million. This is a service, so it's common law. At the time of the contract, structural steel was widely available and was included in the contract as a $6 million item. Before work began on the project, tornado damage shut down the production facility of the biggest structural steel supplier in the country. So let's see, structural steel, and it's a tornado, right? So this is an act of God. Whenever we see an act of God, you usually want to think of what in terms of like a defense or in terms of needing to modify a contract. Yeah, force majeure and practicability. Really more impracticability than impossibility. But it's not impossible. It's so impracticability. When especially when we're thinking of time or when we're thinking of like a cost increase. And the price of structural steel increased by 20% as a result. It was not impossible to construct the project. It's just impracticable at that price. So the builder informed the company of the steel price increase, and the parties then orally agreed to increase the project price to 101 million. So they always do this. They make it oral because they want you to think statute of frauds. But generally speaking, a modification to a contract doesn't need to be in writing for it to be enforceable. Sometimes it does, but it generally doesn't. So let's see. But they're going to try to trip you up with that. I guarantee it. People fall for it every single time. Okay, the builder proceeded with construction and delivered the project on time. The company paid the builder $100 million, but refused to pay the additional 1 million. So here there's a modification, right? What's the rule for modification for common law? The modification common law requires consideration. Unless basically something renders it impracticable. And then, if it's impracticable, the modification must be fair and reasonable under the circumstances. And the circumstances are going to be something like this, like an act of God, fair and reasonable. What do you need for UCC? And they're going to see a UCC distractor because they almost always do that. That is made in good faith, or you don't need consideration. So we want to know what the rules are. And also this brings to mind, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute here too, is that you do need to know you need to be familiar with all the major distinctions between UCC and common law. That's something that we do walk through also in the class. I'm going to walk you through that, show you, and you should have a flashcard and make a note. Okay, this is a distinction. So I have a flashcard just on that because it's going to come up a lot in these problems. And for those of you that are struggling, particularly on the MBE, it's really like for most people, you're like within 10 questions away. That's the large majority. And it's getting those, 10, 15 questions, something around there, getting that many more correct. It's tiny little things. And we have to do stuff like that over and over and over without exhausting our questions and just getting questions right because you've memorized them and you've seen them before. So every single answer option you need to go through, you need to fully understand. If you're ever like, well, I just know it's not right, but you can't explain it, you couldn't write the answer out and write the explanation, you need to dig deeper onto that answer option, which is why I walk through all of them the way that I do. And I go beyond what's on the page by saying, this is where this would come up. Because it could be that no question actually tests you on a rule that's in an incorrect answer, that you don't see that anywhere. So I need to talk about also where that would be applicable so that you can recognize it when you see it, because you could see that on the exam. Okay, so again, if the builder sued the company for $1 million, is the builder likely to prevail? A, no, because the modification was never reduced to a writing signed by the party to be charged. You don't need to do that. So say it's unenforceable because of the statute of frauds. The original contract is subject to the statute of frauds. This modification is not. So we'll just say not necessary. B, so I'm going to cross that. No, because there was no consideration for the modification of the contract. This is forgetting about the exception. Wow, that just writing on an iPad is a little slippery. Forgets the exception. And so if you miss that, you would grab your flashcard that has, modification that's for modification and the UCC common law and make a note. And this is where you you get to know all the major rules, and you're going to use my MBE book for that in the course. You're going to do that, and then you're going to anything you miss that's related to one of these topics, like modification here, you're going to add a little note. And what does it look like? Right? You can make the note. It's just the one with the builder that where there was a tornado damage and the price of steel went up. Then it's an act of God. You could have a fire, you could have a tornado, you can have an earthquake, anything like that. You would have this. So the states are rule for the common law. Oh, and I made it. Okay, yeah. All right. C, yes, because the company's promise was supported by consideration. It's not. Was it supported by consideration? So this mischaracterizes the facts. And D, yes, because the modification was fair and equitable in view of the unanticipated increase in the price of structural steel. So this gets at the exception to the main rule. This happens a lot. They're always testing these pesky little exceptions. But as soon as we see impracticability and knowing what that looks like factually, as soon as I saw the tornado, I was like, oh, act of God and practicability, fair and reasonable is where my brain went. So this is where, like, when I do questions, I don't get stuck between two. A lot of people always tell me I always get stuck between two. And I'm like, yeah, you should always be able to get it down to two. It's pretty rare that I think for most people to not be able to get it down to two. And it's getting to the point where you don't get down to two, where you're always are like, nope, it should be this. And that's the point. That's the point. And that's what I want to show you how to do, at least, a large majority of the time. There's still going to be some that are going to be difficult on the actual exam, but it's about knowing that, okay, that didn't happen so many times that that we're always going to be worried. I don't want to say not going to be worried. All right, let me go back. I have a little bit more to share with y'all. And make sure you hang out after for those of you that are here live, because I do a special little thing. Let's see. So just a little review. And this is how I'm going to do this in the class. I'm really excited. So here's the question, and here's just a couple of notes that I got from when I reviewed that question. So always know whether the contract is UCC or common law and know your major distinction. Make a flashcard on UCC common law distinctions. It'll help you, I promise. And this is all with this question in particular. This is where you must know the exceptions so well and what they look like. So going back to the poster question. So UCC is perfect tender, exception for an installment contract, exception if you are delivering early, you have time to cure. And then also common law is material versus minor test. So just a good chance to review that. Going back to that second question, and then I also included my notes here that I hand wrote basically. Okay. But looking at, or I'll put that back up for a second if you guys need it for any reason. All right. Talking about the second one with the car. So a couple points there, just as a reminder. Don't get hung up on emotion or fairness. Feeling bad for the father and the seller. You feel bad for the father because he's elderly with dementia, maybe. And you really feel bad for the seller because they truly did nothing wrong. And this happens all the time in bar exam fact patterns. So there's some like a sympathetic person that's getting screwed, and they're testing on whether you just apply the law in a rote manner. So like you have to do that. And this will happen a lot. So just, when you're like, all right, this sounds like this person's going to get screwed. That's it. Sorry. So sad. So don't be led astray by that. And then the last one with the builder, again, always note whether it's UCC or common law. Again, note the major distinctions. And again, okay, modification. So you might have those distinctions and make some notes there. UCC, no consideration necessary, but good faith is still required, right? They didn't test us on that per se here, but it's just a good chance to review it. And common law, its consideration is required unless there's impracticability. But, and I do this a lot where I emphasize the unless, but, etc., just to make it stand out because that's an exception. Unless impracticability, but it must still be fair and reasonable under those circumstances. All right. Any questions? Oh, let me share the results of the poll to that last question. half people got it wrong that entered their score, which doesn't surprise me. A lot of people picked B on that last question. All right, hang out if you're here live. And if you guys have questions, also feel free to put them in the chat or put it in the Q&A. All right. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you so much. Make sure you join us again next week if you're coming live. Next week, what am I doing? I think property next week. I think it's property. We'll send out an email inviting you to come. You should come. I'm having a good time. Yeah. So, but hang out if you're here live.